Okay, this is part 2 of this lecture. Apparently, it only lets me do an hour. So it cut me off, which was very annoying because I had already recorded a lot of cellular respiration stuff. That's fine. It was 10 minutes. I'll be okay. All right, so let's do part 2 here. So this is basics of cellular energy, which we will do much more on Tuesday so that you can actually get some experiments in for cellular respiration and photosynthesis. Right, so cellular respiration is our first process. So we talked about how we get stuff into the cell, how we get stuff out of the cell, how water is regulated, all those things. Well, how do we process the energy that we take in as food? So we do that by the process of cellular respiration. Now this isn't the same as just respiration as breathing, but it does involve oxygen in some cases. There are two categories. The first one is called aerobic respiration. Aerobic. So aero is air. So it requires oxygen. Now we have a formula for the way this occurs. This is just very basic, and I will talk a little bit about what else can be used in this process. So we have sugar in the form of glucose, which is our simplest sugar that we use generally, is C6H12O6. And we add to that oxygen as O2, and those are converted into water and carbon dioxide, just picking random colors here, and that is used to make ATP. Just a different color here. ATP. Now ATP is the energy currency of the cell. It's used to exchange energy between different parts. I think I mentioned that. I did. I mentioned that already. Okay, well, I need to go over it again. So sugar now is not the only thing that can be used for cellular respiration. We can also use fats and proteins. So I like this picture right here. This is from your text, figure 612. So chapter 6, figure 12, that shows a lovely piece of some sort of salmon sushi and where things feed in here. So we see our food is in 3 parts: carbs, fats, and proteins. And they go into different parts of this cellular respiration here, aerobic respiration. Now I don't really care if you know this bottom part. I'm not going to ask you to know it. You should know that all 3 of these things can be used for cellular respiration. And they go into different parts of it too. So we start out with glycolysis, acetyl-CoA, citric acid, and electron transport. Acetyl-CoA is kind of an intermediate there where obviously some fatty acids and amino acids get fed in here. All 3 of those types of macromolecules we've already talked about will be used for fueling our body's processes. Now, we also have another type of cellular respiration called anaerobic respiration. I'm going to do it over here. And this does not require oxygen. No oxygen required. So we call this process, also we call it fermentation. And we do this, and so do other organisms. We animals do. So animals, we produce lactic acid from fermentation instead of energy. We get a little bit of energy from it. Now, lactic acid causes muscle burn. If you've ever been running or you work out, you will feel muscle burn sometimes. Now, microorganisms, however, such as yeast and bacteria, they produce alcohol, the kind that we drink, ethanol. Imagine that if we fermented alcohol when we worked out, the world would be a very different place, I imagine. So aerobic respiration requires oxygen, anaerobic does not. There's an image again. All right, so a lot of cellular respiration, the important parts that I care about, occurs in the mitochondria. So I'm going to draw one here. There we go. So they have an outer membrane, and they have an inner membrane that's highly folded. There's our inner membrane. And so on the inside here of the membrane, we have this molecule, many copies of an enzyme called ATP synthase. And ATP synthase makes ATP, so for energy. Hooray! We can get energy. It's a good thing. So we have lots of mitochondria in a plant cell, an animal cell. I mean, in one of our cells, we have hundreds to thousands of these, and hundreds of thousands of ATP synthase on every single mitochondria inside each of those, which means that they make a ton of cellular energy, which we need. We need lots and lots of energy to power our bodies. So our cells are specialized, and mitochondria are specialized for this. The reason they have this inner membrane that's so folded is so that they can fit more ATP synthase on it. It's very highly folded. It increases the surface area so that we can fit a ton of this energy producing enzyme in there. So, fun fact of the day. All right, so that's how we get our energy. So where does the energy from our food come from? Where does that originate? And the answer to that is photosynthesis. The name photosynthesis tells you what it does. Photo means light, and synthesis means to make stuff. So the process of using light to make stuff by photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis occurs in green plants. And some microorganisms. like algae, cyanobacteria. Some microorganisms like that. We'll check some of those out as well. So it is the opposite. The formula is almost exactly opposite of cellular respiration. So let's go back a couple slides and take a look at that, the cellular respiration, before we do the photosynthesis formula. So here it is. If we look over here, we have sugar plus oxygen will be recombined and broken down to create water, carbon dioxide, and energy in the form of ATP is produced. So this is cellular respiration, is the production of energy by breaking down molecules, sugar molecules. Well, photosynthesis is a little bit backwards. It takes carbon dioxide, CO2, and combines it with oxygen, O2, and it does that by using light energy, it can be from the sun, can be from a grow light. Here's my plant. There they are. This one is really sad. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I'm not doing so good. But there's some other weird ones. I'll bring some to class. So, there we go. So, light energy. And we combine those two things using the energy from light to create sugar as glucose. Let's see, 6H12, 1, 2, 6, and oxygen. So we originally had, in cellular respiration, we take these two things, we break down the sugar molecules in the presence of oxygen to create carbon dioxide and oxygen and water. I'm sorry, I screwed up here. This should be water. My apologies, it's getting a little late. So we combine water with carbon dioxide. Let's try that again. Water and carbon dioxide to make sugar and oxygen. So this happens in the chloroplasts. So I'm going to go to the next slide, make it a big one. Chloroplast. So here is a chloroplast. And it's got these inner pancake-like membranes. And again, these have tons of surface area. And so how this works, we have our outer membrane, again, just like the mitochondria. And then we have our inner membranes, and these are called thylakoids. I'm not sure who came up with that name. It seems a little weird to me. So these thylakoids are green, and that's because we have chlorophyll molecules all along them. Chlorophyll is the pigment that makes photosynthesis possible. It's a type of pigment. It's a color. And that's what they do. They absorb light energy to combine carbon dioxide and water to produce sugars. So this happens here in the chloroplast. I should write that down. That is a chloroplast, which you should already know from your cell diagrams and such. All right. So we talked about the similarities between the cellular respiration formula and the photosynthesis formula. So it occurs in a big cycle. All of this stuff is just a cycle that goes around and around. And here's how it happens. I'm going to call this the cycle of energy. This is very, very basic, but that's all I care about for you guys. So the main source of most of our energy on Earth is the sun. Lots and lots of energy. All the energy that we consume, for the most part, comes from the sun. So the sun gives its energy to plants. And these plants perform photosynthesis. Now, of course, in order to do photosynthesis, these plants need carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so they're doing photosynthesis using carbon dioxide and water. Now, the products of photosynthesis are sugar and oxygen. And sugar and oxygen are used by us humans and animals. What color haven't I used yet? I guess I've used all of them. We'll use dark red. How about that? We use these things to do cellular respiration. In order to fuel our bodies. And we produce, from cellular respiration, carbon dioxide and water. Look at that. Simple, elegant. And we use this sugar and oxygen in order to produce ATP as our energy. So this is the basic cycle of energy. Light energy enters plant leaves. That chlorophyll captures the energy from that, takes carbon dioxide and water, combines them, and turns them into sugar and oxygen, and releases them. Then we use that sugar and the oxygen we breathe to recombine those through a series of chemical reactions to make energy for us and release carbon dioxide and water. It's beautiful. It's simple. That is the basic cycle of energy. Thank you so much for your attention. That is all for today. Have a good night, everyone.